Good evening and welcome to Kini News, and also some good news to start the evening. The government has set some guidelines in determining the compound amount for movement control order standard operating procedure violations. This is what you once knew as a 10,000 ringgit blanket fine. Now they are set into 3 categories instead of that blanket fine.
The Cabinet has announced the categories of fines for violations of rules to prevent the spread of COVID-19. The quantum of the fines is tiered based on 3 categories of offences: severe, moderate, and normal. The categories are based on the risk posed by the offence. De facto Law Minister Takiyuddin Hassan said that first-time offenders under the normal category, such as not wearing a face mask or failing to use the MySejahtera app, will be fined 1,500 ringgit. Patrons of nightclubs fall under the severe category and would be handed the maximum 10,000 ringgit fine. Takiyuddin also announced a 50% or 25% discount on compounds settled within a stipulated period. Those who choose to settle their fines within 7 days would be eligible for a 50% discount. And if the compound is paid between the 8th to 14th day, there will be a 25% discount. The changes came barely a week after the government enforced a blanket 10,000 ringgit fine for individuals for all offences, including the improper wear of face mask, and 50,000 ringgit for organisations. The government's decision to hike the fine came into force last week. There had been public outrage over the fines, with many complaining that there were no proper mechanism for appeals in place. This had prompted political parties from both sides of the divide to offer legal aid to people who had been unfairly fined 10,000 ringgit for violating the SOPs.
While many people have nothing nice to say about party hoppers, PAS has announced that the party is open to accepting them.
PAS is always open to those who want to join the party, including party hoppers, said its president Abdul Hadi Awang. In a statement today, he said PAS was open to accepting party hoppers as they can be educated about the party struggle. And if they can't, they can eventually leave, but PAS will always persevere. He said, those who are strong-willed and in line with their Islamic faith will persevere in their struggle, and those who are fragile will hop. Hadi added that PAS had lent their platform to many, including party leaders who had been sacked from their own parties. This included former Prime Minister Dr. Mahathir Mohamad in 1969, Tunku Razaleigh Hamzah in 1990, and Anwar Ibrahim in 1998. Hadi said that sometimes it was hard for people to accept PAS's long struggle, and they can only join the party temporarily. But regardless of defection in or out of the party, he said history has shown that PAS will persevere. After GE14, there was a surge in the number of defections from political parties. More followed with the collapse of the previous administration during the Sheraton move. To date, 15 UMNO MPs and 10 PKR MPs have defected to Bersatu. There are also 4 former PKR MPs who are friendly to Perikatan Nasional and may eventually join Bersatu.
PKR Youth has called on the New Zealand government to extradite Deputy Federal Territories Minister Edmund Santara to Malaysia if the latter is found to have broken local laws.
Federal Territories PKR Youth Chief P. Prabhakaran submitted a memorandum to the New Zealand High Commission in Kuala Lumpur today. He called for the New Zealand government to investigate Deputy Federal Territories Minister Edmund Santara and extradite him back to Malaysia if he has been found to have violated any laws or COVID-19 immigration rules. He also asked the New Zealand government to disclose what guidelines it had imposed on Santara when he entered the country on Christmas Eve.
Kita mohon New Zealand Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade clarify the protocols, arrangement made and approvals given for Deputy Minister from Malaysia to travel to New Zealand, which is one of the most immigration controlled countries in terms of how it is managed during COVID-19.
Santara previously said he underwent quarantine in New Zealand on December 24, 2020 and had managed to obtain 55 days leave from Putrajaya to visit family members there. It has been 83 days since then. The Segamat's MP's whereabouts are presently unknown. Prabhakaran said he was submitting the memorandum on behalf of the Malaysian public and residents of Segamat. He said, many families in Malaysia have lost their jobs and sources of income due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and many have also not been able to travel abroad to visit their children and family members, including those in New Zealand. He said he wanted an explanation on how Santara was not only able to leave Malaysia, but also allowed to be with his family in New Zealand for 55 days.
Representatives of 5 opposition parties have urged opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim to unite the opposition and also to reject cooperation with, quote, kleptocrats.
Several opposition MPs have called on opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim to reject any cooperation with kleptocrats. In a joint statement today, representatives of 5 opposition parties said that Anwar should focus on uniting the opposition bloc and push for policies and initiatives that will benefit the people. They said, the Perikatan National Government has failed to solve the economic, health and political crisis and does not seem to have a clear plan. The opposition could utilize this to come up with an agenda for the people, they said. The joint statement was signed by Amanah Deputy President Salahuddin Ayub, Warisan Youth Chief Muhammad Aziz Jaman, DAP Central Committee member Liu Chintong, Muda Pro Tem leader Syed Sadiq Syed Abdul Rahman, and Parti Sarawak Bersatu member Baru Bian. Yesterday, Anwar had confirmed that there had been informal discussions between PKR and UMNO leaders on possible collaboration. However, Anwar said it would be premature to conclude that an agreement had been made.
So as we previously mentioned, the government has made some changes to the fine for movement control order violations. But earlier today, DAP veteran Lim Kit Siang already criticized them for refusing to suspend the 10,000 ringgit fine until its implementation problems were solved. Iskandar Putri MP Lim Kit Siang has commented on the government's decision not to repeal the 10,000 ringgit fine for violating movement control order standard operating procedures. In a statement today, he said the government has deviated from its people-centric principles and is unmoved by the hardships that they have imposed on the people. He pointed out how the people are forced to go through the trouble of going to district health officers to appeal against the 10,000 ringgit compound fines, yet there are no guidelines as to how an appeal can be made. Lim, who had proposed a suspension of the hefty fines, added that he was shocked by Senior Minister Ismail Sabri Yaakob's position. Yesterday, Ismail had said that the fine will not be repealed, but it could be reduced upon an appeal by individuals who had been issued with compounds. Ismail said the government may allow a reduction of the 10,000 ringgit fine for certain offences. The government's decision to hike the fine from 1,000 ringgit to 10,000 ringgit came into effect on the 11th of March. The increased fine was intended for repeat offenders, but enforcers say they are required by law to impose the maximum fine on everyone, and an appeal for a lower sum can be made later. However, there has been complaints that no appeal mechanism is in place, leading to confusion in implementation. The cabinet is expected to discuss today on how to resolve the implementation problem. And that's a wrap from me today. For more stories, go on over to KiniTV.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter and Facebook to get the latest news updates. Before we leave you, if you'd like to support independent media, do consider subscribing to MalaysiaKini.com. Head on over to our subscription page on Malaysia Kini and there you'll find some attractive subscription deals. If you're heading out, don't forget your mask, and when you can, do try to stay home. The fine may be lower, but those SOPs are there for a reason. I'm Daniel Anthony. Thank you for watching, and as always, stay safe, Malaysia.